Hey everyone, Rob here from Daisho Tactical, and today we're going to be working on how to approach corners in CQB. If you're new to the channel, just to establish some credibility real quick, I'm a 22 plus year law enforcement officer with 15 years on SWAT, and the last couple of years I'm basically a trainer for our SWAT team. Still do get to kick doors now and then, but I've been relegated mostly to the training side of the house. So when we talk about corners, we're talking about just approaching a simple right or left corner. Yeah, very simple. Understand that you're going to get a lot of different people on social media and YouTube and whatnot trying to explain to you the right way to do it. Okay, this is the way the Navy SEALs do it, or this is the way Special Forces do it, or in this case, I'm going to tell you to some degree, this is the way SWAT does it. Today in this video, I want to get a little beyond that, a little bit beyond the right way, and kind of explain different ways to do it and kind of the thinking behind it and the pros and cons of each, if that makes any sense. So for starters, we have this right angle here. And the question is, what is our vertical pivot point? What is the point we're clearing around that may or may not be cover, but for our purposes, we're gonna treat it like it's probably cover. And in this case, obviously, it's this corner right here. So the different techniques come in how we're gonna use this corner to our advantage. Basically, what it comes down to is we can either be very close to this vertical pivot point as we try to clear this corner, or we can be further away from it, and the pros and cons of each. So for starters, if I believe my threat is far away, who knows, we may know that, we may not. My threat is all the way down the hall. It's generally advantageous for me to be a little bit further away from that vertical pivot point, because what it gives me the ability to do is take very minor bites of this pie as I'm scanning, okay, as I'm clearing that corner, as I clear that vertical pivot point, really minor bites, okay? So I'll be able to see the arm and leg of that person before I see the full picture of them. Also, by contrast, when they're looking back in my direction, they're going to have the same effect. Very minor pieces of my pie. So theoretically, ideally, the first thing they see peeking around is a muzzle, an eyeball, and an optic in a perfect world. So that's a big advantage. Why is it a disadvantage? Well, the disadvantage is if I start pieing this corner and instead of this bad guy being here, they're way up here. So essentially your vertical pivot point is now the bad guy's cover and not your cover, and you're just in a very bad spot here. This is like a 95% lose situation. You're not going to win this at all. So that's why you don't really want to be that far back. Another reason it can kind of bite you is if you're doing this, you're basically committing to do this all by yourself. If there's a second person who would be willing or able to help you, they can't move in front of your muzzle, okay? This muzzle's this way, so they kind of got to go, behind you and around you. And if you don't leave them an avenue to do that, you're basically hogging the corner. You're saying, hey, I'm going to handle this all by myself. I don't need any assistance. It's kind of a party foul. So what's the other option? Well, there's another option where we're going to be right up on the cover piece. There's some advantages to this. The big one being I'm very close to the cover, okay? If I want to, I can actually go around the cover and brace my rifle on it, which of course gives away my position to some degree. But bracing really increases our accuracy, thus increases our lethality and reduces our liability, which is a big thing in law enforcement. So bracing can be very good, but bracing also gives away your position and also keeps you from being able to bail out in a hurry because your weapon's around the corner, as opposed to being slightly back from the corner, and you can bail out quite easily if you have to bail out of that position really quickly. So there's some pros and cons with bracing. But if we're up close, one of the big cons of it is it's very difficult for me to take those super really small bites. When I'm working this corner, I'm going to get information in huge flashes, huge swaths, which is fine if I'm in a hurry. Like let's say there's some sort of exigency down here that I got to take care of. But if I'm doing a very slow clear because the threat is high, that can kind of bite me in the ass, because the first thing I'm going to see is a whole flash of this bad guy, and in turn this bad guy is going to see a pretty big flash of me, even if I'm using cover well. So that is kind of the negative to it. The handy thing about it is I can get quickly behind cover if I have to, because I am so close to my vertical pivot point. By contrast, if I was here and this guy was here, this person has to make a lot of movement to get behind this vertical pivot point as cover. Makes sense? They got to make a lot of lateral movement here to effectively use this against this bad guy, as opposed to if they are right here, it's relatively little lateral movement to get into cover. So once again, pros and cons there. Another pro with being close is it's a lot easier for this number 2 guy to come in here and work around the back of you and get 2 guns downrange and kind of more people working that angle. So which is best in my opinion? Well, like most tactical questions, the answer is it depends. All things being equal, I prefer to be about an arm's length back so that muzzle doesn't go beyond the cover point. Okay, so I'm back a little ways, and that way I'm not giving away my position, and that way I can work this angle but still have the ability to bail out in a hurry if I have to. And although it's not as precise as being back here as far as how small the bites are, it is better than being right up on it. So about an arm's length, maybe a little bit more, is my kind of happy spot. Now, if it's a really high risk clear by myself and I have time on my side, and to be brutally honest, I don't know how this scenario would happen, but let's say it's a fantasy and this occurs. I would probably be back as far as I can be allowed reasonably, so I'm not too worried somebody's going to be here. But that way I can take those small bites and slowly clear that pivot point and hopefully see just a little bit of the person and not take too big a step where I process more of it than I have to. Here's the caveat to all this. People like talking about this argument, this scenario, what are we going to do, how are we going to clear? But the reality is you are very, very rarely going to be afforded a choice. Hallways this wide like this is like commercial, like a hospital, a school, something like that. And 90-some% of structures that we do CQB in are residential. They don't have hallways this wide. You're just not afforded the opportunity to do it. There's also other crap in the way and other stuff going on. So usually how we use that vertical pivot point when we're coming around the corner is dictated by the structure. It's not dictated by our choice. So most of the time you're going to be stuck up here, up close anyway, regardless in a residential context. That's the reality of residential CQB. So that's all I got on clearing corners. I'm going to do a few more of these in the future, maybe one on T-intersections and one on hallways, just explaining the basic CQB principles. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, hit the little bell. You guys know how YouTube works. Better yet, support my content by buying some merchandise. Go to my store at daishotactical.com. There you can find a variety of weapon slings. I make lots of different ones in lots of different colors. I also make shooting bags. Those are all made by me by hand at my workbench. Thanks for watching.